Hey, good morning, every spiritual healthcare goer out there. It is another lovely Wednesday, actually, here in Edmonton, and welcome to day 147. Here we go. We are almost at day 150. That is just insane. I think when this started, I don't think anybody expected to get to day 150, but here we are, day 147. And we've got some really awesome questions coming up, which I'm stoked about. Everything from questions about the Law of One and UFOs up all the way to Dogmen, the Beast of Bray Road. So we've got lots of stuff to cover today. Good morning to everyone. It's crazy that everybody kind of is in different places right now in the world with the whole COVID situation and whatever. Everybody's in a different phase, it seems, as to who's doing what. It's just insane. I hope you guys are all doing really well. Good morning to everyone. So here we go. So as I say, we've got a great morning ahead because I've had some great questions come in that I'm super excited to dig into. One from Brandy, which I've actually been hanging on to for a couple of weeks now as I'm like kind of going through the questions, and it's really cool because it's all about this material that has been published now for quite a number of years called the raw material, and so we're going to talk about that, answer some questions about that because it's somewhat new to me. I understand the premise of it. I've not read this stuff, but we're going to go through kind of what that is and what that all means and how it ties into ufology, because it's totally sort of an area I think we haven't touched on so much in spiritual healthcare. So good morning to everybody that's tuning in. Hello, everyone. This is going to be great. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the phenomenon of dogmen and, as I say, the incidents that have happened like all over the US and Europe and Canada and all sorts of stuff. So this is going to be super cool. Good morning to Ed and Dan and Sally. Nice to see you guys. Nice to see everyone. It's going to be really cool. So I hope you guys have been doing amazing. I wanted to let you know, I've posted it a couple of times now on the Entity Seeker Facebook page. The brand new edition of Haunted Magazine is coming out. It is now available for pre-order, and I'm super stoked. HauntedMagazinePrintShop.com. You guys can get a copy of it physically, or you can download it. So there's an app and you can download it. But it's super cool, and I'm really looking forward to this month's issue because my good friend Richard Eastep has got a really great article in it. I ended up writing about something I did not expect writing about this month, which was the Dyatlov Pass in Russia. And for those of you guys who are not familiar with the Dyatlov Pass case, it is a murder mystery of epic proportions. It takes place in a pass which is named after a fellow by the name of Igor Dyatlov, who ended up leading an expedition of university students through this mountain pass, and they didn't come back out. And when they were found completely mutilated. Their eyes and tongues were ripped out. They had fled their tent in the middle of the night with no clothes on. Something terrified the hell out of them. And there's been a lot of speculation over the years as to what it was that scared them so bad that they left in this horribly cold weather because it was snowing, and ended up in this horrible state on the side of the mountain. And the Sherpa people that live in the area will tell you straight across the board it's a Yeti. And since that incident, there has been numerous incidents very similar to that. They've recovered multiple bodies. They've had an increase in Yeti sightings over the years and things like that. So really interesting stuff. People have tried to blame this on weather. They've tried to blame this on all sorts of things. But anyway, the Dyatlov Pass is my feature article in the new Haunted Magazine coming out. So it's wild. It's really wild stuff. But let's dig in. Let's dig into today, everyone. Good morning, Tammy. Hey, good morning, Wes. Good morning, guys. So let's dig in to today. I'm excited about this because I wanted to start off with Brandy's question. I've been hanging on to it now for like a week or so, and she asked. I've been watching a lot YouTube on YouTube lately. I've been coming across several references to a law of one. I was wondering if you know anything about this and its connection to the law of attraction. There's some UFO connection with it, and I was curious what this is all about. Like, super cool question. So I'll tell you guys, like, I've not read the raw, what they call the raw material, okay, so RA. And that's where this concept of the law of one was kind of introduced quite a number of years back. And it was started with a fellow by the name of Don Elkins. He was a PhD physicist and airline pilot and university professor. And this story kind of reminds me a lot of my great-great-grandfather, Albert Durant Watson, because he started out, of course, as this medical professional in the field who ended up coming across this information and these people that could channel a consciousness that called itself Ra. And it basically was professing sort of a lot of higher wisdom, a lot of knowledge and information. But I think what's striking about the Ra stuff, which kind of caught my attention, was the fact that the level in which these people who were, not super educated were coming out with this information it was like PhD level thesis stuff, which these people had no knowledge of. This was something that that these individuals who were just the average Joe were seemingly able to channel and translate, and the information turned out to be correct. So the way Ra, this consciousness, describes things is that it's basically the idea that everything in the universe is connected. Everything, like, just very similar to what we've all talked about for so many years, and scientists have talked about, is that everything is energy, everything is entangled. We talked about quantum entanglement here recently. Everything is entangled, and that the law of one is basically describing that. It goes on to describe that we, and both we as people and matter and animals and whatnot, are really expressions, or what they call distortions, of the universe creating. So basically the idea of a person or something like that is like the universe experiencing itself through its own manifestation. So a lot of the stuff is very, very similar to things that we've talked about over the years and whatnot, but they go into everything from cosmology to densities to like all sorts of stuff. And it gets a little bit convoluted when you start to get into it. Like you kind of have to know your stuff a little bit. I like Raw, from what I've read, has not been like it's not a beginner's thing. But it is really interesting. So that's the law of one. So where does this end up tying into ufology? So this is where it differs a little bit from other material, is that the consciousness that they believe is being channeled through this material is almost like a not only just like an entity or a group of entities, which they describe themselves as, but they almost describe themselves as extraterrestrials. They almost give the impression that there's almost like some sort of telepathic connection going on between these kind of extraterrestrial beings that aren't necessarily physical, but that's what's being conveyed to the people that are channeling. So you can see how this is like differs a little bit, like it kind of leans into that sort of UFO community. This isn't the first time I've heard of this this process. There's a couple of documentaries on Netflix, and I will have to check the names of them, but I remember watching them, where that's exactly what people talk about. They talk about going out to valleys like Sedona and places like that, and having these kind of telepathic sessions with what they believe is like consciousness or extraterrestrials and whatnot. So really, really different stuff. And yeah, so the law, that is the law of one. And so Brandy's question was about how does this all intertwine into law of attraction? Well, I think first of all, I think, the principles as to what they're talking about, whether you believe they're, this is real or not real or whatever, the principles as to what they're talking about is the same thing that we've been chatting about for the last couple of weeks. Things like the idea that everything is entangled, that we do have an ability to influence our reality, that we are projection and manifestations ourselves, So I think there is a tie-in to what they're saying, and I find there's a common thread with a lot of these types of things. Whether you look at Aleister Crowley's sittings, or you look at Edgar Cayce, for instance, Abraham Hicks, or the humble ones, which my great grandfather was involved with. So when you start to like dig into some of these, into some of these things, you start to really see the fact that this theme of us being a part of the universe and then being able to therefore influence that universe, I think is pretty universal. And I mean, even throughout religions, certain religions, right, we see that theme like running through it. Even in the Christian Bible, we hear Jesus say, pray, believe it is yours, and it will be. In one of, I think it's in, I can't remember which section of the Bible it's in. I will find it. They even talk about the idea of, you write it down and it will manifest. So this stuff is like, it's pervasive, right? Through various religions, and Buddhism, of course, like all over the place. It goes right back to the emerald tablets. The emerald tablets, of course, talk about as above, as below. So we've got this kind of running theme of this, I think, through a lot. And now I think as physics is starting to catch up to these different philosophies, now we're seeing, with the discovery of things like quantum entanglement and things like that, we're starting to understand why that is. Like, what is it? Why is that? So I hope that kind of answers your question, Brandy. As I say, I can only comment so far because I haven't read the raw material and the Law of One, but from what I'm understanding of it, that to me is where the connection sort of underlies. So the next question that I'm so stoked to get into, it actually came from Scott I got a message on YouTube. Yeah, it was on YouTube. And I love this because this is one of the most interesting topics on the planet. And that is the occurrence of these strange encounters of these wolfman-like creatures that have been reported all over the world. Like, all over the world. Probably, as I say, the most famous being the Beast of Bray Road, right? The Beast of Bray Road, which is in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. And, oh, hey, Robert. Hey, nice to see you. Haven't talked to you in a long time. He's saying we are one with the universe. The energy and thoughts we put out into the universe does affect the outcomes of our lives. I agree. Yeah, totally. That's it. So the Beast of Bray Road, which is, as I say, one of my favorite subjects because I find this absolutely phenomenally fascinating. I want to get into this a little bit because his question to me, Scott's question to me was, what is your take on it? Do you believe in this? Is this something that is a physical being, or do you think it's something spiritual? So, well, I'll tell you. I'm going to let you guys kind of weigh in on this a little bit because this is such a, not really a heated topic is the wrong way to place it, but it's a confuddled topic. The dogmen it's really wild. So this phenomenon, for me, this stuff that absolutely exists. The encounters are very real. There's been physical evidence that have been recorded in the form of tracks and prints and all sorts of stuff like that. Really, really unique things. Witnesses, as I say, all over the world for centuries that this stuff has been going on. But I don't think it really was called to great attention in the West until in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, back in the 80s. There was a young woman she was driving home from work, and she ended up on this little stretch of road. It's like 2 miles-ish stretch of road called Bray Road, and it's a connecting highway. So for those of you guys who haven't been to Wisconsin, it's very like woods and prairies. It's mostly farmland with sections of woods sort of intermingled. And Bray Road is a connecting road that is mainly prairie from one end to the other, and it connects 2 main highways. And so she's driving down this road, and she catches something in her headlights, and she thinks it's an animal like sitting in the middle of the road. And when she turns her headlights on, she realizes that it's this giant, just what looks like almost like a werewolf, she described, like huge dog type creature with elbows and knees, and it's kneeling on the side of the road eating this piece of roadkill. and it's kneeling, like it's got knees and like it's holding the food like this, and it's eating. And she just lost it. Like she couldn't believe what she was looking at, and it noticed her and whatnot. And what it was interesting about this was that as soon as she noticed it and she got close enough to it, her car engine died. Now this is going to add up a little bit in a second, but she finally got her car to turn back over, and she sped off to her mom's place to just because she was terrified as to what she had seen. And her mom thankfully believed her, but it wasn't until a lot later where she ended up going and reporting this to the wildlife control office. And the wildlife control officer that was working at the time, you know, she was asking, of course, you know, have you seen anything like this before? And he pulls out a manila file folder labeled werewolf, and he's like, well, where do you want me to start? And so it turned out there was multiple sightings along this road of this giant, like 6 foot plus creature that looked like a canine on 2 legs running around, and it surprised the heck out of her. So a very notable reporter now, mainly because of this story, named Linda Godfrey, you guys probably know that name, ended up picking up the case because she was a rookie reporter at the time. And when she started asking around, she found more and more people in Elkhorn had seen this thing, were very embarrassed and ashamed of it, like didn't want to talk about it, but had offered this and said, yeah, like we see this thing, and it's, you know, people are locking their doors because they're seeing it in and around their farms, and it's killing cattle, and it's, you know, it's doing all this stuff. So they were finding animal mutilation and all this thing, all this stuff going around. So the Beast of Bray Road has been hanging around there for a very long time. A good friend of mine, Ken Gerhard, who's a cryptozoologist, he ended up investigating a number of times as well, held stakeouts there and whatnot, looking for the Beast of Bray Road. Now, not far from that, up north in Michigan, if you go a little bit further, you'll discover stories of something called the Michigan Dogman. So the Michigan Dogman, very, very similar. Same descriptions, you know, hanging out, same areas. And what's interesting about this is that even when you go all the way over to Europe, you get the Beast of Gévaudan over in France, who murdered multiple people, which is unlike Beast of Bray Road and Michigan Dogman. And they're seen here in Alberta as well. I've been working a case, and I've talked about it a few times here on Spiritual Healthcare, working a case where the people had seen not only this one of these things climb the side of their house and was looking in their bedroom window, but sitting on top of their work shed, as well as in the back of their truck. Her husband had gone out one morning, and it was literally standing in the back of his pickup truck, and he came back in white as a sheet. And that was just local here. So what is the connection to this? What is this? Is this an animal? What is going on with this dogman stuff? So here's where this gets really, really interesting. So if we go back in history, the First Nations peoples in the area will tell you that they're not there to be predatory. They're actually there for protection. And the next question, of course, becomes protection for what? So there's been a number of cases where these creatures, like the Michigan Dogman and things like that, have been seen hanging around with basically what are burial mounds. They're known as effigy mounds. And usually these are places of prayer or worship or burial for First Nations people. And these dogmen creatures are seen around these areas. Now, interestingly, just off of Bray Road, there's effigy mounds. There's these great big effigy mounds. Same thing in various parts of the world where we're seeing these. Of course, Alberta here has a massive and long history with First Nations people, and we had quite the civil war here between the Europeans and First Nations. So plenty of areas where this is very prevalent. So what's interesting about this is that when people have tried to investigate these creatures, because when they see them, they're very flesh and blood. Like you could reach out and touch them, you know. But when they go to set up things like trail cams, you know, take photos, take video, anything like that, what's interesting is that the trail cams will get triggered. That everything will get triggered. Everything goes off like it should. But instead of seeing the creature in the photo, you end up with either like a mist or a haze or something. And the bait, which usually people leave out things like, raw meat and things like that because they've been seen often eating roadkill, the meat will be gone. The food will be gone, and then bam, you've got no photo. Like something's triggered the photo, the meat is gone, you see the mist in the photo, and it disappears. Really weird. So it's lent people to wonder, okay, is this something that is more spiritual than it is physical? On Bray Road, there's been plenty of tracks recovered. There's been tracks cast and photographed of great big huge paw prints, where this thing has been sighted. So it's leaving physical traces, but at the same time, it seems to have this non-physical element to it. Now, one of the things, I think one of the cases that has brought this to light more recently in the last number of years, last couple of years especially, has been the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, Ballard, Utah. In the basin there, and that is one of the names, of course, that these these things have taken on. Is it something like a skinwalker or a medicine man practicing what they would consider like bad medicine? So what they've seen on Skinwalker Ranch, and the reason why it's called Skinwalker Ranch, is basically this plateau. They've got this sort of plateau because the ranch itself is in a valley, and they've seen these incidents of these dogmen walking across the top of this plateau, and so it's really interesting that they seem to be hanging around these areas. Of course, in that area, you're looking at the Navajo people and whatnot, and they'll tell you the same things, that these things are there as protection or whatever. But as I say, some believe that they're actually a skinwalker. It's really interesting to get into some of this stuff. I think the case of the Beast of Gévaudan in France was probably one of the most violent of the cases. I don't believe there's been any reports of killings or anything like that in the West. The Beast of Gévaudan was a little bit different. It murdered a whole pile of people. But the dogmen in the West seem to be primarily concerned with chasing people away. There was a case in Wisconsin, again, Beast of Bray Road, where these two kids who actually were friends of the reporter Linda Godfrey, they had noticed this great big black, what they thought was a dog, leaning over a pond. They'd been tobogganing, and they saw it leaning over a pond, and they went over to pat it because they thought it was this dog, and it stood up, and it scared them so bad the one kid wouldn't even go back to school. He was just absolutely petrified, understandably so. You're not expecting that in a stray dog. It's one hell of a stray. So yeah, it's a fascinating phenomenon, and I highly encourage if you guys have Tubi, Tubi, the streaming service, Tubi, there is a fantastic documentary by a fellow by the name of Seth Breedlove, who is a fantastic filmmaker, called The Bray Road Beast, and it's a really good documentary on all of this. So check it out, and it's free to watch. So Sally's asking, do you know if they make a sound? There was a weird bipedal creature that appeared in my mom's backyard for about 2 weeks. It hopped on 2 legs. Oh, there we go. And it appeared by a tree. My grandfather is the only one who saw and heard it. My mom was a child at the time, so they shielded her from all of it. But she heard the conversations between her family members, and my grandma and my mom's oldest sis heard it. Yeah, I from what I understand, it's howling. People have heard howling. I've not heard of any barks or anything like that. But often people, when they encounter it, report a really deep guttural growl. And it says that everybody says that it's something they've never heard before. Like, it comes from this thing's guts. There was a case of the Michigan Dogman. It was a fellow who was featured actually on the show Monsters and Mysteries, who was a repo guy and big tough dude, used to dealing with, all the crazy people with the shotguns and the, backwoods. And he had gone out to a property, and he was looking for an old Cadillac. And as he kind of drove around this property, he said it was really weird. He said the house itself had bars on the windows, like it was very locked down. And he got out to look for the car, and he came around the side of the house, and it was the middle of the night, it was very dark, and something stood up in front of him, and he, of course, thinking, oh my god, it's a person, and he froze, and it froze, and when he shone his flashlight on it, it was the Michigan Dogman. And apparently he said it let out with a growl that he has never heard in his life. And he ended up running back to his truck. He knew the thing was right on his heels. He got back in the truck and drove away, and he actually dropped the account because he was like, I'm not going back to this property. Like, there's no way. Yeah, so that's what I've heard of anyway, sound-wise. But really interesting story, Sally. I think there's these cases, all over the world of these encounters, and the people who I've been working with who have seen it, interestingly enough, are they're First Nations themselves, so they've got a little bit of an understanding about some of these things. But I mean, it shook them up pretty bad. Multiple accounts of these things. Being around the property when I was there. The one night we had another investigator and myself, we had left the house, and when we got to the car, the property is an acreage. So there's the house, and then there's a lot of yard, and then there's woods around that. And when we left the house and we were about to get in the car, we definitely felt the feeling like we were being watched. There was no question about it. You knew there was an animal in that woods, that you were being watched. And they have this great big old dog who's just amazing. He's so beautiful, but he is lazy as hell. And he's huge, and like just huge. And I mean, he doesn't bark for nothing. He ended up letting a porcupine move into his doghouse at one point, and he didn't even bark. He didn't care. So he just doesn't care. And so we got in our car. We were careful enough that we did not turn our backs on the woods. It was that strong of a feeling. And we were seeing movement in the woods, something that looked quite tall. And when we drove off, we didn't feel that feeling dissipate until we were a good, I'd say, 2 minutes down the road. We got a text message from the owner at probably 5 to 10 minutes later. And she said, did you guys see anything out in the woods? And we said, well, that's interesting you said that, because I think there was something that was keeping its eye on us. And she said, because the dog is absolutely going insane on the porch. He was barking his brains out, and became very protective over the property. So something was going on. Something was there. Really interesting. So Sally, you were saying the noise yours made had a grunting sound, and her grandfather thought it was someone getting sick. That's interesting. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, there's the odds of these things they obviously do, but it's rare, I find, to find people that want to talk about these encounters, because they're so weird, they're so off the wall, and people don't want to sound like they're nuts, because you don't want to turn around and say, oh, it's a werewolf, but that's not really what these things seem to be. Of course, werewolves, you think of these kind of animagus shape-shifting people, right? And that's not what this seems to be at all. It seems like, once a Michigan Dogman, always a Michigan Dogman. They don't seem to transform, one way or the other. They just seem to be almost placed in these areas. So really interesting. I highly recommend you guys find the documentary, The Bray Road Beast, because it is really cool, really well done. There's interviews directly with the animal control officer who was taking these reports down. It's not a cheesy documentary. It's very well researched. It's really good. And as I say, it's free on Tubi. So if you guys can just download Tubi, and you'll be able to find the documentary, because it is absolutely worth watching. And Linda Godfrey is interviewed as well, and many witnesses. They start to dig into exactly what in the heck is going on in Wisconsin. what is going on in Wisconsin? My friend Chad Lewis lives there, not in Elkhorn, but in the state of Wisconsin anyway. And there's so much unique phenomenon there in this, you know, unassuming community, and all these communities all over, that it's I find it's just one of the neatest places on the map to me. I think it's really cool. So that being said, good luck y'all sleeping tonight. I'm just saying. Y'all gonna be looking for werewolves next time you go out into the woods. So yeah, anyway. I hope you guys found that super interesting. I think it's such a unique topic, and it ties in, I think, with a lot of different lore and whatnot as well, and you know, cases, you know, as they throughout the world. I mean, you look through history, right? And throughout history, there's a fascination with these kind of wolf-headed beings, you know, right back to ancient Egypt, right? I believe it's the god Osiris who had the dog's head and so it's interesting. Like, you go right back in Renaissance paintings, all sorts of things. You see these like these wolf beings with these, you know, walking around on two legs. So yeah, I think there's a kernel of truth in every story, right? When you see something like having a running thread like that throughout history, you have to take a really hard look at it and you know, and start to take some of it seriously. Start to dig through it a little bit and take some of it seriously. So anyway, let's do some affirmations before we go, because it is important that we go into our week. I'm going to have some more interviews, by the way, coming up that I'll be posting for you guys in the next little while. I did a really great show, the Paranormal View, just this past Saturday, and I had a blast. So that link is now up, and there's going to be another one that'll be coming up here pretty soon as well, that I'll throw up on the Entity Seeker Facebook page. So you guys will be able to check it out. We've been covering some really neat topics, like really cool topics. So there's been some awesome questions coming up as of late. If you haven't seen the Paranormal View interview, it's on entityseeker.ca as well as the Facebook page here. But it was 2 hours of insanely good discussion, and really great questions. It was super cool. So yeah, if you guys have the time, definitely do it. And as I say, don't forget Haunted Magazine, the Dyatlov Pass. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's creepy. It's creepy. You guys will be, you know, I don't know, hiding under your blanket or something at night. It is one of the scariest stories, I think, in history. It's super scary. So anyway, on that note, let's do some affirmations and get rid of that energy for the rest of the day. Okay, everyone. Everyone take a breath. Everyone shake it off. Shake it off. Shake all that negative stuff off. I am a channel of peace and well-being, and my need for peace is abundantly met. I recognize, I unconditionally accept, love, and appreciate myself and who I am. I recognize and am grateful for the abundance that is constantly coming into my life, which I can choose to allow or not. I feel with every breath a sense of peace and love. Everybody breathe. I help others by maintaining and tending to my connection with Source as much as possible. This well-being is accessible to me, even in a sea of uncertainty. And at this moment, all is well. I am able to liberate myself from my past and live with peace and serenity. I can see and appreciate all the beauty and abundance of the life around me. I am able to embrace love while letting go of fear. And I find peace with the soothing silence of my inner being. Everybody breathe. Shake it out. Shake it out one more time. Shake it out. Shake it out. Oh, this was awesome, you guys. Thank you for being here and enjoying all of this and hanging out. and talking about crazy things like werewolves and skinwalkers and yeah, ufology and all the crazy stuff every Wednesday. It's awesome, and I am so excited about next week. Sally says she's gonna check out the documentary. Do it. You guys will not regret it. I promise. It's gonna leave you with so many questions, and you're gonna be hooked on this too. I find it's just one of the coolest things. Check it out. Seth Breedlove, by the way, has a series of documentaries out that he's done with some incredible people like Lyle Blackburn and Chad Lewis and all these people. So please check out his documentaries. But the Bray Road Beast is probably, it's my favorite out of all of them. It's definitely my favorite. But yeah, so anyway, everybody, check it all out. Have an amazing week. And I will see you all next Wednesday on Spiritual Healthcare. Of course, for those of you guys who are new to watching, it is on youtube.ca or .com/entityseeker, as well as entityseeker.ca for all classes, interviews, everything. It's all there. And I will see you all. Oh, and by the way, on Discovery Plus, for those of you guys who have Discovery Plus, I put this up earlier, but just in case you have missed it, season 3 of Haunted Hospitals is on Discovery Plus, so you can grab that on Discovery Plus. I know Travel Channel is going to be picking it up as well, but season 3 Discovery Plus, it is there. So yeah, so US people, you now have at least one avenue to find it. So see you guys next week. Bye everyone.